Let's tell the truth, shall we? We know, because you're living it. Is what this president doing, is it working? Now, let me show you the other side of the coin. The story out of Wisconsin. 3 years ago, if you remember, the media warned us about a political storm brewing in Madison, Wisconsin. The historically progressive state of Wisconsin, the first to allow public sector unions, had elected a conservative governor named Scott Walker. Dangerous. He promised to turn around the economic basket case called Wisconsin with a dose of free market, common sense, common principles, and common courtesy. Everybody knew the out-of-control government pensions killed any hope of recovery. And Walker dared to reform the system. Boy, they put every chip on the table for this. His ideas were hardly radical, but that's not what the media told you. Walker was asking the government workers to contribute a small amount of their salaries to their retirement and health care plans. You do it, I do it. Why couldn't they? Well, he tried to do what, needed to be done. He wanted to stop the unions from automatically collecting dues from workers' paychecks. You want to join a union? Join a union. But you can't take it automatically and force me. He limited the lopsided collective bargaining rights that emptied the state coffers and made certain union bosses were very, very wealthy because of the way everything was happening. He wanted to end it all. Well, what was the response from the media? It was broadcast into our living rooms, our houses, on our cell phones every single night, night after night after night. People screaming bloody murder. Wisconsin legislators, they fled the state. They ran out of the state. There were mass marches that were held. Schools closed down. Drum circles were convened. Red-faced mobs stormed the Capitol. They hurled insults. They threatened with death threats Walker, his wife, his children, and all of his allies. The national media swarmed into the state, warning, America, this is a dangerous governor in Wisconsin who is going to ruin everything. But the state's conservative leaders stood firm and passed a few common sense reforms. The media elites predicted the state services would collapse, businesses would close, jobs would vanish, and the Wisconsin economy was done for. Remember, this is 3 years. This president has had now going on 6. The Washington Post insisted, let's be clear, I want to quote, let's be clear, the high-stakes standoff in Wisconsin has nothing to do with balancing the state's budget. NBC called the reforms an outrage. CBS said the state workers were underpaid, and ABC called Walker the most divisive politician in America. Watch.
We turn now to that outrage you just heard about in Wisconsin, where the Republican-controlled Senate voted last night to cut collective bargaining rights for public employees.
When education and other factors are considered, 2 recent studies found public sector employees end up earning less than their counterparts in the private sector. In Wisconsin, nearly 5% less, nationally 7% less.
Inside story of a man who at one point was the most divisive politician in America.
Governor Walker, for a while, you were the most divisive man in America.
He was? Really? The resident conservative, MSNBC's Joe Scarborough, said Walker's plan seems kind of un-American. That's a quote. And Ed Schultz declared war.
I hate to say this, but the concept of telling people that they cannot come together to negotiate with a government, it just kind of seems un-American to me.
There's a war brewing, folks. American wage earners are under a ruthless attack. Newly elected Republican Governor Scott Walker is trying to balance the budget on the backs of school teachers, prison guards, and snowplow drivers. Walker is also on a mission to destroy basic human rights.
Okay, sounds bad. I mean, poor Ed Schultz was even more unhinged than he usually is. Even at a recording of an official MSNBC Get Out the Vote ad to recall the governor, he just went much worse. So here we are, 3 years on. Now, how those dire predictions, how did they turn out? Well, it's pretty hard to find. I mean, if you belong to the media elite, not very well. In fact, so bad we don't even want to cover it. But if you're actually living in Wisconsin, quite well. Quite well indeed, in fact. The unemployment rate, remember, he's going to destroy jobs. Unemployment rate in Wisconsin, now the lowest it's been in 5 years. Initial unemployment insurance claims are at a 12-year low. Walker pledged to help the people of his state create 10,000 new businesses by next year. They've already created more than 13,000 new businesses. More than 100,000 jobs have been created over the past 3 years, not saved or created. Mind you, real, I can point to the person, I can show you the desk, I can show you what they're doing. Real jobs created by the people of Wisconsin, not by the state of Wisconsin. In 2009, a survey showed that only 4% of employers thought Wisconsin was headed in the right direction. Now, 95% think it's headed the right way. In his State of the State address last week, Governor Walker issued the final blow to the Chicken Littles who warned of disaster by exercising common sense reforms. Walker had turned a $3.6 billion budget deficit into almost a $1 billion budget surplus. Now, most politicians can't wait to spend nearly $1 billion surplus, but Governor Walker has a different idea.
$1 million budget surplus shows that the economy is coming back strong as more people are working, more employers are hiring, and personal income is up. What do you do with the surplus? You give it back to the people who earned it. It's your money.
Can you imagine? That's a novel idea. Can you imagine if the president got up today and said, you know what? I've got to return some of the money to the taxpayers, to the ones who actually paid it, not to the ones who are living off of somebody else. Wisconsin citizens now are free to invest in their own homes, their own businesses, their own lives. After all, it's their money. Why not? State Democrats are again predicting disaster, but the national media is nowhere to be found. Look for the Wisconsin turnaround in the New York Times, the Washington Post, or the LA Times. It's not mentioned. They won't show it because it's a success. The incredible success has not been featured on CNN, MSNBC, or any of the nightly newscasts that demonized Walker 3 years ago. Why? There's one AP story on The Wire and some local Wisconsin coverage, but that's it. So why? Why won't the media cover Wisconsin? Well, simple. And it's something that this network has based its whole existence on. The truth has no agenda, but the media does. It proves that what Scott Walker said works. Limit government, reduce spending, free people to create jobs, pay down the debts, and it will create a surplus. And if Governor Walker does get his new tax cuts enacted, we can expect the national media to pay even less attention to the American success story once it's proved correct again.